that we don't know like when the next market is going to be here where there's like a ton of volume. And for me, like everything that I've already done with the Discord has been free and it's been open. And like, we've been getting, I mean, just all these different opportunities that were specifically for, I mean, of course there were like some on Twitter, but like, for the most part, the bigger allocations go to the Discord. And that was something that it was available to anybody. And so, with that being said, this is something that obviously means a lot to me because this is the first NFT that I've released, and I didn't want it to be something where it was just like a profile picture project. Like I've mentioned that a bunch, and so yeah, so. What I'll say first and foremost is like thank you for sure. The link is pinned up if anybody needs it. Just with like the info at the OpenSea and like the mint page. So that's all right there. As of right now, I think there's been like a total of like 600 that have minted, and I mean I'm super happy about that. Like don't get me wrong, this is huge, and I wanted to thank like everybody who's like tuning in and that has supported and followed me. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is about. I guess we could talk about what a lot of people had seen today on Twitter and just like in my Discord and everything in regards to like the art specifically for the pass. And this is something that I addressed in my Discord a couple weeks ago, but it came to light, of course, because as you can imagine, I had already addressed. So, like, let me just start from the beginning. So, I had a concept, and I was coming up with different ideas on things that I wanted to do, like with my team, and we were out like looking for an artist, somebody that would be able to do the pass, and so I was recommended to someone who had never done pixel art before, but that was like one thing that I really wanted, and so I wanted to make sure that like whoever it was skilled and like could actually do it. So I spoke to somebody about it, and we got in a call, we talked about it, and I'd already gotten quotes from other artists about like what the compensation would be like for exclusive rights for one graphic, because that's all this is. It's one graphic, and so I had spoken to this guy, and we both like went back and forth. We're like, yeah, like these are good ideas and whatever. And then I asked him, I was like, so what do you think about like compensation? And he's like, well, I want to make sure that that this is something that like I can do for you. And I was just like, okay, well then we'll just like table it and we'll move on. So um, I had different concepts that, well, first of all, I had like an idea, and I had concepts that I had found on Google. Like I had all sorts of different shit. And so I sent over like my ideas to the artist, and what ended up happening is we just started like working, and then we ended up deciding on a certain price for it, and that was fine. And then um, there was like no issue. Like we agreed on it, that was fine. And then there ended up being like things with animation and just different shit. And the artist was like, oh well, I guess this is taking like a little bit longer and than I thought that it would. And I was like, okay. And my thing is like I always want to take care of like people that are doing stuff for me, especially when it's something like this that would have been used for my first NFT. So I ended up taking what we had discussed and I doubled it. I was like, all right, how about that? You get a free pass as well, and that's kind of where we'll leave, like where we'll leave it. And it's funny because like a lot of this was happening like around the time that the dented and weather report situation was going on. And he heard that, and then he came back to me. He's like, hey, I'm kind of like reconsidering like our our agreement. And I was just like, oh my God. Cause like I had already gotten quotes for what it was going to be and everything. And I was already like, I don't know, I guess like halfway through dealing with this. So what ended up happening is that we ended up like talking through it, came to a conclusion, and then we were cool. We were on the same page. So after having like the back and forth on that, I just decided that instead of just like taking someone's word for it, that I was going to have my lawyer like write up an exclusive rights agreement, which I did. And I sent it over to him like when we were almost done with it. And he goes like, I'm not going to sign this. And I was like, okay. And he's like, well, this is like not, it's not fair. And I was just like, well, it's not, it literally like all it was an exclusive rights agreement. There was no issue with what we had discussed at all. It wasn't about there wasn't like a there wasn't an issue with the agreement. It was an issue with the contract itself. And he had sent over a like another contract that he had found on like Google or a template or something like that. And he was like, "Why can't we just use something like this?" And I had sent it over to my lawyer, and I was like, "Well, what do you think about this?" And he's like, "Well, I mean, this seems like a template, and if you want to just like make sure that it's something where because that's the whole point of like having a lawyer is to ensure, because this is a business, that everything was locked down for it." So I told him, I was like, "Look, this is the contract," and he's just like, "I'm not going to sign it." And the thing is, there was never any mention about him saying, "Oh, I'm going to have it reviewed" or anything. He was just like, "No, like no, no, no," and I was just like, "Okay." And so I never ended up using like any of his art commercially at all. And I took my concept that I had literally like already conceptualized beforehand, and I decided that I was going to go ahead and move on, and I was going to, because I had to, like, the whole thing is that I wanted it to be a certain way. So I decided that I was going to reach out to a couple other people, and I did. And I ended up finding somebody to do it. Literally sent them the same contract. We had the different terms, but like, I mean, the contract was the same one that I had sent to him, and then that was it. And so this was all addressed in my Discord when it happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there was like no issue whatsoever. And then what happens, of course, as you guys like realize and know, is that today, on the day of my public launch for my pass, he decides that he is going to go and create a thread and go and reach out to a bunch of different Twitter accounts and stuff, which is why magically all of a sudden Dented is like involved with this, and they say, "Oh no," and like, "Oh, well, whatever." And the fact is that had I gotten a signed contract from him, I would have just paid him exactly like I did with the artist that did it, or that did it for me now. I would have just, if he had I sent him the contract. If he had signed it, I would have paid him. I would have used it because I needed it. Like that was the whole point. Um, but he didn't, and so to me, I was like, okay, cool. So that was pretty much like how it went. And it ended up pushing my launch back. And I had to find like a new artist to do it. And it was unfortunate. But the fact is that like I was not going to move forward with this specifically unless I had a contract. And the way that it was spun was that I stole it, which I didn't, because it was literally like my concept to begin with. And I didn't use anything that he produced commercially. So that was pretty much it. And Alex, who is my head mod and my partner, had a conversation. Some of my other mods did as well, and he ended up deleting messages between them. But she had a conversational, and I can let you like go over it and everything. But the long story short is that she was just like, "Look, like if you want to get paid, if you want to move forward with this, like sign the contract." And so the issue was pretty much that just, and this happens, look, with me too. Anytime I get a contract at any given point, I always will go and I will send it to my lawyer to have it reviewed, even if I think it's fine, no matter what it is. And if that's something that people aren't willing to do, then that's fine. And in retrospect, of course, I'd say, all right, maybe, you discuss that like a little bit sooner. But, at the same time, when we first were discussing it, I didn't really think that it was going to be much of an issue. So that's a lesson learned. But I think that like the narrative was spun the wrong way. And like I said as well, is that like all of this information and every single thing that came up with this happened today, right? It happened on like the day that I was going to do my public launch. So with all of that information, it's pretty apparent as to like how it went down. And I've seen like everything, like I was in the situation. So like I know how it happened. And the way it looks to me is that like he's defaming me, and I am going to be speaking to my lawyer about the way that he went about it and everything. And that is something that, at least like publicly, it's not, I'm just saying it mainly because, it is what it is. But, the fact that he went out and decided that he was going to do that on the day that I was launching my pass that I've worked on for months, it was malicious, and it was out of pocket, wrong. And so that's something that I'm going to have to take up at a later point. So, yeah, so I wanted to like throw that out there once again. This is something that I literally already discussed a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't going to be an issue at all. until he decided to bring it back up on Mint Day. So I'm sure you guys probably understand that. And so yeah, that was like a good portion of my day. And it's nice when you have when you're building something. And as you guys know, like, I get up and I do spaces and I make YouTube content and stuff, and I'm always like calling it how it is, never like pumping my bags and dumping shit. Like, I literally never do that, and I've always been transparent. And what happens is, I go out and I decide that I'm going to do something like this and put together a group and be the leader for a group because this is something that I want to do. And it went the way that it did. And for whatever reason that this guy decided that he was going to do it, like, it sucks. But I mean, now it's something that it's like, it's a larger issue for me because of the way that it was handled. And so anyway, the long story short is that, had I at any given point had the contract, like when we were discussing it, if he said, hey, I want to have it looked over, sure, dude, have it looked over. I needed the art at the time. I like it was There was no issue with it. And so yeah, I mean, the concepts were things that I had already conceptualized and of course, discussed with him. And that's like how it came about. But I mean, there's no like stolen IP, there's none of that. And it just sucks because I literally, if I had just gone in Microsoft Paint and fucking put Ash Robin in, like, Paint, and then exported it, and then if I had just uploaded it 3 weeks ago, there wouldn't have been an issue at all. So, like, anyway.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note just that the original concept, we keep saying it came from Ash. He had a rough draft that he provided to Christoph, as well as the current Ash Past artist, that he created with Google Images and Photoshop. So he handed it and said, here's the background. I want you to add A, B, C, D, E, F, G, even paid for the font. So when we say the intellectual property is Ash Robbins, it literally all came from Ash. So unfortunately, things, soured. There were issues with, compensation wanting to be tweaked in the middle of, the agreement and the progress. So we need a legal contract to protect ourselves from stuff like this. I had a 2-hour private conversation with Christoph where I was begging him, please sign the contract. We will not even use your artwork. We will pay you, but you have to give us exclusive rights. If you don't sign over the exclusive rights, we don't own the artwork. We can't use it for the Ash Pass. So people are getting hung up, I think, on the contract. Like, oh, you had an agreement in place, pay the guy. We wanted to, but we want the rights that we agreed on and that he agreed to pass over. So that was the hang up there.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so that's like kind of how it went down. And it is unfortunate because obviously, this is something that I have been working on. And uh, I I will say this, that um, there's been other alpha groups that have launched around the same time, and I'm not going to, like, name anything specifically, but with similar mint prices, similar like supplies. And it's not really that unusual. Like, if you are somebody who like truly thinks that you don't need like an alpha group because you want to go off and just like run around in discords all day long, and that's like how you want to go about it, then like that's totally fine. Like, everybody has their own way of doing things, but there's a reason why some of the best alpha groups in the space are so expensive, and it's because those networks are not free to get into. And so what I just, I want to keep like reiterating this because, I think that everybody is just like, oh, like, well, what do you need revenue for? Well, the thing is, like I've mentioned time and time again, that I am somebody who wants to build in this space. And so while I do have taxes to pay on this, while I do have a team, and I also want to be able to do things in the future, a lot of it comes down to the fact that I had gotten on spaces and I'd done everything on YouTube and nobody had any sort of issue at all. And then, of course, like, there's certain people who I suppose like have no idea like what the value of an alpha group is. And the next thing you know, like, there's a group of people who are like, oh, this is ridiculous. Well, like in reality, there's people that are spending like a lot for alpha groups, and this one is like actually a fraction of what it costs to get into like all of those. And so that was like, a lot of my thinking. And so there's a ton of expenses with something like this, especially with, I mean, my thing is like, I had plans to do monthly giveaways for holders for like, multiple. So I wanted to make sure that there's value there. And then tools and all this kind of shit that, like, eventually having custom bots made. And I find it to be like quite interesting that the narrative like around me had changed so quick, when there literally wasn't like anything that I had mentioned like all of this stuff. This is all, everything was like completely out there, and people are like, well, why is this so much? And like, I'm not going to get into like, all of the details, but like, I have mentioned like time and time again that I've been in groups that have been whatever, they're like, I mean, some of them are like a lot now, but I went about it in like a certain way. And once again, I do realize that the market is not the best. But with that all being said, my plan and everything that I'm going to do is not changing at all. I do have like a lot of things that I want to do over the course of like this year, next year, like just forever. And so this is one of those things that, if you think that, you what I'm not going to even get into that, but like, if you just believe in like everything that I've been saying and doing and what I'm going to end up building, well, this is exactly what it is. Like, this is, I mean, it's no different, because I know that a lot of people have listened to this, and like a lot of people value my opinion. And so I realize that some people don't agree with that, but like that's fine. That's totally fine. I've spent a lot on alpha groups in my time, and this is something that I firmly believe in it, and it's more than just like this group. And so I think that there was like, a narrative that was spun around that as well, and it's just like, well, you look at like a lot of 10K PFP picture projects that have done not fucking shit, and you don't know who any of these people are, yet everybody's like tossing ETH at them like it's fucking nothing. And then, you have somebody like me who has gone out. I've done multiple different projects, and just like all of it. And so I always wanted to, and maybe in retrospect, I say to myself, like, maybe I'm too like open, like maybe I do too much of this stuff. But no, I mean, I've always like believed in everything that I've said, and I've been like open to criticism and like all that kind of stuff. And so this is something to me where like I just, I'm sticking to exactly what it is that I've been doing. And it's, that's why I decided to do this instead of a PFP thing, because that's not really my passion. Like, my passion has always been like around finding new projects and like the trading aspect of things. And the fact that I can build something around this as well, it's kind of like the best of both worlds. So yeah, so that's what I will say about that. um and once again, I mean, I'm super grateful for everybody that knows what's up, because it's not like, I get it completely. Like, in this space there's a lot of people that and over the past like couple of months, like there have been a lot of different projects that have not done the best, or like, their teams have like, just like fucked off. And just by nature, like this project and like, this entire Discord and this group is different than that. And I think that that might be hard for like some people to grasp. So anyway, yeah, so like I said, I mean, I'm absolutely grateful for it. And today was definitely not easy, for sure, because as you guys know, like, having my name like dragged through the mud, and everybody, just like spinning these narratives on all of it, it's just like, well, it is what it is. And it's something that, like, I take a lot of that, and I just like think about it, and I say, like, is this true? Like, what could have been done differently about this? And I mean, just based off of my experience, like, I thought a lot of this through. And once again, I do remember, during the bull run, like, there's a huge surge of demand for alpha groups. And so for me, the way that I view it is that whoever is a part of the group is obviously going to be here. And I'll figure out, because as of right now, I'm leaving public open for a bit. and I'll put out like more details about that in terms of supply and everything, and we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, I mean, I'm planning on, the group that we have, we're gonna make it the best group that we can, and none of my goals and none of the missions that I've had have changed. So anyway, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. And yeah, so we can bring up a couple people if they want to ask some stuff or discuss like anything. So I'll start with Sal. If anybody wants to request and come up, like feel free, for sure.
Hey, brother.
Hey,
Hey,
what's up?
man. I think it's nice that you guys are explaining things, but I mean, you know this without me telling you. You don't need to apologize for a thing. You don't need to really explain yourself for a thing. I mean, what I'm looking at is you're doing exactly what you said you were going to do. And I mean, you've seen this in a lot of projects. Everybody is all nice and honeymoon phase up to the day it mints, and then all the FUD comes out. And I mean, I don't see it any different here. You just get people with sour grapes, and then that guy trying to come after, I don't know what he wants, some money, I guess, but whatever. I mean, you guys are doing a great job. You don't need me to tell you, and yeah, don't absolutely don't apologize. I'm in the service industry. I own my company, and I quit apologizing a long time ago. So you don't need to do it, brother.
Yeah, I hear you. And as much as like, I mean, I obviously feel bad, just about it, because to me, like, I always say to myself, like, hey, what could like I have done differently, or like this and like all that kind of shit. And I realized that like there are a lot of people that are full of shit, and so for them, like, they won't like face any of these things, which is why like last night I got into a spaces like immediately as like there were any like doubts or concerns. Same thing as tonight. I've always like randomly done spaces. I've always like talked about this kind of stuff, and that's why I don't really have an issue taking like a lot of this stuff like head on. Mainly just because like I mean, just saying, like, it's easy to sit behind a keyboard, but then when you're somebody like me who's talking in front of like 320 people, I mean, this is just like, you have to like let it out. And so, yeah, I hear you. And I know that obviously like you've been a huge supporter and everything. And I know that, what, just like stuff that you've said in the past, but I do think that while I know like what my intentions are, I also think that like it does show a lot to get up and to just like, put it all out there.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that I mean it's admirable, but and absolutely don't no, and I don't think you are, but no second guessing. Don't second guess a thing, brother. I think y'all are doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to it, and I think a lot of other folks are as well. So I'm gonna cut. I'm gonna get off so somebody else has a chance. But good talking with you again.
For sure.
We appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words.
All right, that was Sal. So I'm gonna bring up. Let's see. Um, Alex, do you have anything else to say as of right now?
No, I'll just help you answer questions. I mean, let's bring up leapfrog, leap lottery token.
Okay. Hey there.
Hey, I guess my words were going to come from, I actually don't know you, and I just stumbled upon this completely randomly because was a big room. I don't know anything about except what you told me. I will say, as a developer myself, there's always going to be FUD. Um, I've kind of been in the same situation as you, where the question is like, what could you have done differently? Do you think that there is anything you would have done differently? Because I read his thread, and he said that, um, or he or she, who I don't know who they are, but they said that they had 6 hours to sign or 8 hours to sign a 6-page contract or something. Like, I don't even know what that. See, the thing is, it's just like there's so many different things. So I guess my question for you, and just as a learning lesson for me as a developer who've been in kind of situations like that, like, what do you think you would have done differently that could have maybe avoided the situation?
So, um, I have a couple things on that come first to mind. So the first is, I'll address like what you said about like how there's there were like a couple hours. Like, here's the thing, is that and this is just like in the moment, right? Like as I send over the contract, he takes a look at it. He goes, "Ooh, yeah, ooh, no, no, I'm not signing this." He's like, this is a lot. Like, and it was like, I mean, if you've ever like read a document, I get it. Not everybody is like an expert when it comes to like reading shit, and and I don't mean like just reading in general. I mean like legal documents. Like a lot of times, like legal documents are difficult, which is why a lot of times like when you have shit you have it reviewed. And so had he said to me like, because he said there was like a timeline on it, but it was just like, my thing is that like I was under the assumption, because we had already discussed it, that like I was going to send him this contract and then it was going to be signed. And so the date on the contract was that same day, right? So had he said to me like, "Hey, I want to have this reviewed," I would have said for sure, and then that would have been it. And then if I had to like change the date for it, I would have done it. And like it wasn't about that. It was about like how adamant they were about, "No, I'm not signing this. No, 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 no." And like, I mean, in retrospect, had I dealt with somebody who was like, "Yeah, I want to have this like looked over," like I realize that that takes a bit of time. Like, lawyers or whatever, and not everybody has a lawyer, and I get that. But when you're dealing with stuff like this, and this is like a huge business venture, right? Because that like is at the end of the day what it is. I am not going to risk having any open ends or anything, to where if somebody decides to come after me, then I'm busy in like a legal issue with somebody, which is why you have like a contract, and that's like what you do. So that's like the first thing. I guess the second would be,
Well, I also want to jump on and just say real quick, it was 3 pages, not 6. So I'm not sure why that became the narrative. It was actually pretty simple. I saw it. And I also had a private conversation with Christoph where I told him, even though the date says the day before, we will honor it. All you have to do is sign the exclusive rights over. I have a screenshot where I was like, please just sign it and get paid, and let's just put this behind us. Like, that's it. So he didn't have a time limit. I told him several times there was no time limit. We told him that in the Discord in front of other people. So it just got spun completely wrong?
and another thing that I will say too is that after there was an issue, and after everything that I knew about like the situation and how there was a lot of back and forth about it, what I even told Alex is, I said, "Look, if this guy even signs this, I'll pay him, but I'm not going to use it." And the reason why is because like I didn't even want to be in a situation where I was using anything, because of like the issues that we had. Now I had already, the contract that I sent over it had my signature on it already. And so with that being said, like it would have been something where if he signs it, sends it back to me with his signature, I'd paid him, and I probably wouldn't have ended up using it anyway, just because of how it completely went through. It wasn't about the money, it was about the principle, and it was about the fact that the entire, I mean, we're talking about one piece of art, like literally one graphic that I wanted made. And yes, I wanted it done in like a specific way, and maybe like I harped on that like a little too much, like in retrospect, because at the end of the day, as like a lot of people know, like I could have thrown up a rock like onto a whatever, and it could have been anything. But yeah, so I guess there's that. And then the other thing that I'd say is that I definitely think that just if you I guess like the big thing would be to like have it stated that, because here's the thing that's like going through my head is that like I had reached out to multiple different artists, and I was like, "Okay, I am going to use this for this purpose. What is your cost for exclusive rights?" And that's like what it was. And I think the issue that came up was that this guy specifically wasn't like like it wasn't just like a, "Oh, I've done this before and like I am pricing like this piece and this is how much it's going to be." I think that like as time went on, and he saw like that there were like a lot of eyes on this group, and like everything, that he was like, "Oh, well, there's going to be like revenue from this," which is why like he backed off and then like continued to like ask more. And I was like, I like, I mean, I had an agreement, and I do realize that it was something that we were working on a lot. And so, and he kept on like talking about how he has like a family and stuff. So I was like, all right, whatever. We are working on this together. I like it. I will like agree to change the agreement. And of course, the other thing too is that like I in full like would have, I would have paid it. I told him that I'd send him a pass as well. And I also like, when you're in a situation like that, like even though you have an agreement, like I have no problem like tipping somebody as well, which is what I had mentioned that I was going to do. So, it ended up becoming like, a huge thing where it was like semantics behind like signing a contract, even though the agreement was there.
Mm-hmm. And well, one, I'll say I really appreciate the transparency because this is my first interaction with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's so my question then becomes, and you can kick me off the stage as well. I mean, I don't want to take too much time, but like, where did it go wrong? Is it so like before you answer that, like obviously if you mint out, you get close to $1 million towards the project, um, off current ETH prices, and then if it goes up, it'd be a lot more. But I mean, I know that's not that much money, to be honest with you, when it comes to building projects and what
Yeah.
it can actually take. And if you want to trend on OpenSea, you're going to spend 50 grand right there. If you want to get, you know what I mean? It's quite a bit. So do you think that it went wrong by you telling him? Did you tell him like what the mint price was going to be? Is that when he started to? I'm one because
Can I handle this question? Because
sure.
I actually called that this was going to go wrong before it went wrong because of red flags that I saw. So the fact that the artist said, "No, we don't need a contract. We can work that out later." Red flag. That should have everything should have been solidified at the beginning. Compensation was changed multiple times. The third time, Ash put his foot down and was like, "I'm not changing it again. This is ridiculous." That was a red flag. I think when you make an agreement with someone and they give you a price, you honor it. And then, of course, he came back and said, "Hey, this is a lot, more than I expected." Ash doubled the price. And he actually went above his highest quote with someone that already had the experience that he was looking for. He was like, "Sure, man, I get you're putting in a lot of work. I'll up it." Well, then he came back and said, "Hey, I'm having second thoughts again." Huge red flag. So I think from the beginning, not recognizing the red flags is where it went wrong, and not having the contract signed in the beginning, because everything was so, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to work on this together." It was so chill. And at the end, we realized it really wasn't a friendship. It should have been treated as a business transaction.
Mm-hmm.
No hard
Mm-hmm.
feelings. But obviously, once he saw that this was going to be an NFT Alpha Pass project, he saw the money attached to it.
Mm.
Because everyone knows when you buy exclusive rights artwork, it doesn't matter what you use it for. It's really none of the artist's business. You're buying the rights to that artwork. You can charge $50, you can charge $5,000. It's up to you. But whoever buys it can use it for anything. I can put it on a t-shirt. So I think he saw an opportunity to get more money.
Mm.
And on top of that, what I will say is that um, because all of the quotes that I got for this were for one piece, right? And I realized that like the nature of a 10K PFP project, like, it's different in the way that the industry treats it. So like that's something where artists like typically get like, they get a large portion of like whatever it may be, depending on like the project and like all that kind of shit. And so this was a situation to where like I pretty much like went around and I was just like, look, like I want one picture. If I want to take it and put it on a fucking t-shirt and go stand on the side of the road and go sell it for profit, I can do that. If I want to use it as an NFT, I want to do that. And like I got quotes for that. And I think that as like time went on, and there were like certain situations in like Twitter spaces and stuff with like Dented and like all that, he was like, maybe I undersold myself. And like that's like the vibe that,
Mm.
so like that's where I think like it really started to like get iffy, is that like, and also by the way, like I will say this, that like, when I was like dealing with him, there was like a lot of shit that I had in mind to do more of, and like I obviously have like a pretty big platform and everything, and it's something to where like I obviously need like a resident artist for everything that I do, first of all, and then second of all, like if somebody's like trying to get into like any projects or something, like I'm more than willing, and I've said this to like my community too, for like community manager positions or anything, but like if I can make a connection, like if I can help out, like I'm more than welcome to, I'll do that for sure. And so like I just think that like in the moment it just had to have been like, he was like, "Oh, I think like I undersold myself." And then it just became like more and more, which is why, I did go out and have like a contract like written up specifically for it, which pretty much just all it said was, "I give you money, you give me this piece, I can use this piece," and then that's it.
So I think what Alex said was pretty correct, like in the sense that it's maybe could have been seen as like, oh, we're going to work together and this and that. And then that's when, I wonder if when they realized how much money could possibly, I mean, that doesn't, the money off the mint, that doesn't even include royalties. And I wonder, if they was like, I'll just wait until it comes out, make a big deal about it, and try to extort some. I'm not saying that's not what they did. Again, I'm literally just from an
Yeah.
outside perspective, but that's kind of what it seems like, because if you do some work and then refuse to sign the contract, like that there's, you know what I mean, you know what's going to happen. It is just weird to me. You don't have to answer this, obviously, but how much was the pay? Like, I'm just generally curious. Like, how much was the payment? Like, I don't think it was small, right? There was no way it was like $300. Like, it's got to be a decent amount of money. And I wonder, I don't know. I mean, is that something you want to answer? You obviously, you don't have to, but
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that, and I'll just leave it at this, mainly just because, like, this is what I'll say about it. All of the quotes that I received for one piece of art, and I got like 10 of them, whether they were from like, it was all like, whatever. It was, on the internet, it was from like, just different places and just like Twitter, all of it. There were a couple, and they were between like, there were some people that said like 500, some people wanted like, 3 to 4,000, something like that. And so like, it wasn't as if like this was like and that was something that I wanted to do, of course. Like I wanted to say like, okay, what is typical for like this kind of art? Like I went out and I did my research so that I could find exactly like what something would be like for this. And so I mean, it definitely wasn't like, because I'm like I said, like at this point, and like even me like getting up on this space, like obviously, this is a public room and everything, but yeah,
I'll save you, and I'll say what he got paid was above 7 of the quotes. So
it was the
it
highest
was.
I got. It was over the highest quote that I got for it. And I will, and like I said at the beginning of this, like chances are like I am gonna have to like speak to my lawyer about like how this went, because I mean the whole thing that you said about like after the fact, like my whole thing, and I discussed this with like my team as well, is that was my worry, is that I was like, oh well, if I enter, and that's even why I said, even if he would have signed it and I would have paid it, I wouldn't have used it. And it's because I didn't even want to be in a situation where I was entering like, something where I was using a piece of art from him, because it was just sketch.
yeah, I mean, that was basically my last question. I will say this is that I have like, so we're not, I don't have any NFTs or anything like that. But I have looked into like what getting art would cost, and there are artists like you can find phenomenal artists like on Instagram that will sell you the exclusive rights for $500, right? Because they don't know how much. It's different when people start to figure out how much money, and then the question arises is like, is too much transparency in that situation bad? Like, should you not? And that's because I'm trying to learn from the situation as well. Like, should you just, it's not even their business, right? Like, is that, or should you tell them, and should they get a percentage? I think this question leads to, we're going to find out more in the Web3 space as this gets bigger and bigger and these situations arise. But it really is an interesting question if the artist should get, even if it's a one off or an alpha pass, should it be different? If they do a 10K, profile picture, it's a really interesting thing. And I know there's not an easy answer for it now. So I do appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that like what you brought up is, it is what it is for sure. Because as of right now, I have people that reach out to me all the time, and they're like, "Well, I'm going to be a community manager. Like, what should I get? Like, for like this like work and everything." And there's just no industry standard for like a lot of this shit. Like, of course, and also when you talk about like devs, I know that you mentioned that like you said that you did something with like developers and stuff. Is that like there are a lot of different devs with different skill sets and that kind of shit. And, you pay for quality when it comes to like a lot of those, different people, because as of right now, like, there are not like a ton of like really, I mean, there are like if you have connections, but like, there's not a ton of people that are very, solid with smart contracts and shit. So when it comes to like contracts or like work in the space at all and like all of it, like, yeah, I agree. I mean, I definitely like once again, like the nature of this specifically was and I've talked to like a lot of people about this because in the event that I ran into the situation, I wanted to be able to like say that I did my due diligence. But um there's a reason why I reached out to like so many people and got like a lot of different quotes on just something like this, because I wanted to make sure that like I was in the right and that I wasn't just not I just wanted to do my research. So yeah, I think a lot of, I mean, it's a big conversation, and I think that like it'll come up in the future as well. And so it's definitely not the end of stuff like this too. But once again, this was a situation where we had it and there was an agreement and all that. And then, all of it went down like when it did. And I addressed it to my community specifically. And then nobody heard a peep until today, which is the day,
And that all happened February 25th, by the way. So it's been
2 weeks.
yeah.
So then, okay, I've said last question like 10 times. I swear this is the last
Okay,
one.
I'll give you one more.
Okay, one more. So then why are they saying, like, I know you said they why are they saying that you used the art? That's my own, is it like just a design that you gave them and then they did a rendition of it, then you didn't use their rendition, someone, so they felt like, what, I don't understand why they're saying that you used the art then.
Because I had a vision for it. So it's like, I
I mean,
mean,
it's what you just said. Ash gave him the art that I have a a picture of the conversation, the initial conversation. Ash said, "I like this. Google and Photoshop. I made it. Do this, but better, and add all these things." So he did that with the other artists too. So we didn't use Christoph's art because the intellectual property is Ash Robbins. He made the original rough draft. Everything is from Ash Robin. The car, the people in the car, the water, the sky, the stars, the font. He paid for the font. He chose the city. He wanted the lights flashing, the clouds, the color scheme. Absolutely everything came from Ash. He just needed someone to actually draw it and do pixel art because we have no talent. So that is why the artist feels like we used his artwork, because really it's Ash's artwork. It was his rough draft. If you look at what I've posted, and you can scroll through my replies on Twitter, you can see the original concept is pretty much the Ash Pass. It's been set in stone from the very beginning. Ash had the Ash Pass art locked down, color scheme and everything. Mountains, road, you name it.
Well, I think that speaks for itself. Would you consider having them up here to actually talk to them in front of people? Or no? Is that just kind of like too much and not worth it?
well, the thing is that at this point, with the way that things went today, I am going to be talking to my lawyer in the morning. And so, before I get into like any sort of public conversation, I need to see what I'm going to do about that. Because, like I said, I mean, it's, and by all means, like, people tweet all day long and that's fine and everything. But, this was obviously like a malicious thing, and on the timing of like today. And so it's just something that like before I speak about it publicly, I'm gonna obviously get counsel for it.
Well, I appreciate the transparency, and as somebody who literally didn't, and forgive my ignorance, but literally didn't know you before this, I will say that the transparency is appreciated, and I think that this is probably, you've probably done the best that you can to handle it and resolve it with your community. So, yeah, much respect in that regards. And I'm going to drop down now because I said one more question like 10 times, so it's a big flaw.
No,
I
you're
appreciate you.
You had great questions, so thank you so much because you allowed us to be able to explain things, and I'm sure a lot of these people listening had the exact same questions. So thank you.
No, thank you guys. All right, I'm dropping down now.
yeah.
Nice to meet you.
I'm bringing Simon up. Hey, Simon, what's up?
Hey man, so I got in here like 20-30 minutes ago. I just been listening to the whole ordeal. I mean, just want to come up and say I've been in a lot of these situations when the artists, maybe there's miscommunication, or in the end something like this happens, clout, money, whatever it may be. It's my understanding that you came up with the original idea, so you definitely should have all rights to the IP. I mean, it's your idea, so in that regard I think you're going to be totally fine. Just wanted to reiterate that. But then just in regards to, if you just didn't want to to associate with that image, or if there were issues, I just wanted to let you know you can always change it through the smart contract metadata if it becomes too big of a hassle, or if there's any issues like that. Just want to let you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that like I mean, I definitely know that like you could re-upload something, and if for whatever reason like it gets to be like too much of a pain in the ass, I'll just like take a fucking picture of myself drinking a water bottle and I'll just like throw it up there, and that'll be it. But like but yeah, definitely something that like it. And I'll even say this too. There was like even a time, for me when I was thinking, and I was like, well, obviously, like I had, like I envisioned all of this. Like I was like, is this guy gonna like, pull some shit like this just based off of like, the kind of like vibes that you get, and so it's something that like was definitely like on my mind. But I mean, the fact is it's just like if you go out and if you have somebody do something, like you have a concept and it's like you tell somebody a concept, you're like, hey, like go ahead and do this, and then it doesn't turn out like the way that you want it to, does that mean that like you can't like use it, you got to scrap like an idea altogether, just because somebody had like made a draft? Well, it's like, no, like I was the one that like had mentioned like this is this the skyline and like all this kind of stuff. And so yeah, I guess that's kind of like my thought on it.
Yeah, the legal work, I mean, I'm sure tomorrow morning when you meet the lawyer, for me, it's as clear as day. It's I imagine this how it happened. You give him a little document or a little pamphlet. Hey, I like these colors, this scheme. This is my vision. Build it out. In that case, I think it's gonna all work out. It's unfortunate that this happened. I think it was definitely calculated, but I think you're handling it in an amazing way, man. I mean, just the fact everyone here has been active, been listening, and we appreciate it, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, something that like I've mentioned it like a ton of times, but I don't like to just if there's like an elephant in the room, I'd prefer to just like take it on like head first and not necessarily like ignore it, because I realized that there were like a lot of people that were wondering about it. And so it sucks that it happened, but also you mentioned calculated. I mean, there's just no doubt that like I mean this happened 2 weeks ago, and of all days for it to show up, like and also like I do know that the artist specifically was because I found out from some people like in my group, was pretty much going around to like my followers and just like sending them the thread. So like intentionally going out of their way on a day that I'm launching a project to try to cause issues. And so it sucks. I definitely saw it coming, but this is also the same reason as to why I had a contract drafted up. And if anything, I'm just glad that I never entered into like a legal agreement with them, because if anything, like that's better, for me. So
Definitely. So, on a positive note, you know, I think wallowing in this whole thing, like it's counterproductive. Like I think this happened, you're handling it the right way, and just we're all gonna keep our heads up. We're all here for you. And more important than anything, looking forward to how the Ash Pass rolls out and all the tools coming with it, man. And thank you for having me up. I'm gonna step down now.
Hell yeah, good deal.
Thank you. I will say that, I mean, no matter what happens, we're going to make the Ash Pass the best alpha group there is. So we're so grateful to have all of y'all listening and asking questions. And it's just great to be able to talk and hang out with you guys.
Yeah, I brought up Bonsai.
What's up, guys?
Hey,
Yeah, first and foremost, congratulations, man. I know this has been a lot of work in the making, and so definitely congrats on that. Flowers, as they say. Um, I know Web3 is supposed to be all about the artist, man, but this stuff is getting out of control. I've been in your shoes with a smart contract dev that he renounced ownership, and then he had a tricky contract and went back in there and added royalties for himself. Um, and so he didn't truly renounce ownership. It's crazy. And like, other people have never seen a contract like that before, that even though they renounced ownership, they can still have access. But and I've worked with artists on NFT projects, and man, to me the pricing is like, it's like menu pricing. These guys set the price, you agree to the price, and I guess what we're all learning is you just got to get like things, releases in writing. It's BS. I mean, it's like whether you're building a house or fixing a car or buying a steak at a restaurant, you agree on the price, and just because you enjoyed the steak immensely doesn't mean they get to charge you more than the price on the menu. Like, it's crazy. So I just wanted to say, man, yeah, stick to your guns, do the right thing. You haven't done anything wrong. I just hate that a lot of people in this space are like immediately on the side of the artist without really hearing the whole story. And I think in your case, I think enough people have your back to where right away it's like red flags. So yeah, man, just you're doing the right thing. Talk to the attorney like you're planning to. And I don't know. I honestly think someone needs to make an example out of one of these guys that are doing this. And like I don't want to, like, I guess, bring in other names into this, but in another scenario where there was a huge financial loss related to a very similar situation, I would love to see some sort of a lawsuit, being put out there to the artist to let people know, like, this is serious business. You can't screw around with people's livelihood. you know they think they have you over a barrel because the art, you're already relying on the art. You've already sneak peeked the art, you've already showed the community, and now it's hard to go backwards. So they blackmail you, or they extort you rather. And I think someone really needs to make an example out of one of these artists and teach them that this is not how this works. You agree on a price, that person gives you the price, and like you said, I have no doubt that if on Mint Out or whatever, you would have tipped the guy. I have no doubt in the other scenario that I'm referencing, they would have, not only would the artist have made $250,000 off of the initial mint, but he would have got royalties, and they would have probably tipped him pretty big, and it's frustrating, man, to see you guys doing this heavy lifting, hard work, all this planning, all this work you've done to build your Twitter, your Discord, your community. And all this guy had to do was this simple, work on his computer that you were the conductor of. You gave him all the sampling, all the instructions. And I know how that goes, man. I've done the million texts back and forth on fixing this, tweaking this. No, man, this way, this is what I want, over and over and
Mm-hmm.
over again, to the point where I'm like, God damn, I'm just going to learn how to do this myself because this is frustrating. and then at the end of the day, everyone is like, Web3, the artist is the one. This whole Ash Pass is, if it weren't for the artist, this pass would be nothing, and it's like, give me a break.
Yeah, I think that you make like a lot. I mean, you nailed it on the head. Like you make a lot of good points, and I mean, I think that people even realize this too. I mean, the market was a little bit better 2 weeks ago. Had I just like taken whatever, I could have uploaded anything. In retrospect, like a part of me wishes that like I would have just like uploaded like a little fucking thing that just said Ash Robin on it, and I could have changed the metadata at a later point, like when I had like exactly what it is that like I wanted to use, so I didn't have to like scramble and rush to get it. And yeah, and it is like a super unfortunate type of thing. And obviously, like even just hearing you say it, like I mean, you've dealt with this as well, and it sucks. But to me, it was one of those things that it was like, look, like you didn't sign the contract, that's fine. You go your separate ways, I go my separate ways. Like we're totally fine, and that's it. But that's just not the way that it go.
Yeah, man. Good job, and just keep your head in there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. All right. So I think that at this point, like we've spoken about this, and that's like a lot of what was just discussed and everything. I mean, what I will say is that like I mean, and Alex mentioned this, like the goals haven't changed at all. I'm gonna like continue to mention this like over and over again, and obviously like I'm very excited to do all of this, and for the people that whether you like come up in a space or just like support me like in the background, just know that I mean, I've always wanted to build something that I had like as my own, and this is like this is just what I decided on. I wanted to like build something in this space, and it happened to be this group. And I like I said, I didn't want to start off my NFT career with a 10K PFP profile type of situation, and so that's why I ended up going with the route that I did. And rather than like opening like a shoe store or like any other kind of business, I found myself like in this space, and I just know about like the value of like networking and being like in a group like this. And so that's why to me, and I know like with my intentions and as like when it comes to leadership, I know like what I'm about, which is why I always wanted to go out, and I wanted to make it like very apparent to everybody that has supported me and has just like watched any of my stuff, that like a lot of this information that I have and that I've picked up, like I learned it within the past like 8 or 9 months, because that's how long I've been in the space. And at this point, it like kind of seems like I'm a vet, but like I'm still like I'm new, like I'm still trying to figure out my way. And I've been through like bull and bear markets, and I've seen how it goes. And I mean there's a lot of people that are going to get kind of wrecked in times like this, and they're going to be like, well, I don't know if this is like really for me. But all I can say is that like it's very obvious that this is a space that if you stick around in it long enough, like you're going to eventually, if you're one of those kind of people that wants to go out and eat, you're going to do it, because it's really not that hard to like seek out the knowledge. It's like right in front of you if you're willing to like take it. So, Alex, do you have anything else that's like on your mind that you kind of wanted to mention or at all?
No, I mean, I think we've addressed, the situation as best as we can. We've, gone over it. The intellectual property belongs to you. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Several red flags. We're just going to go forward and do the best that we can from here on out, and just keep doing what we've been doing. And the people that are in the Discord had no issues, in the past 2 weeks. This was addressed, February 25th. We all moved on, moved forward. Everything's been going great. We've been killing it with the alpha. So just gonna keep it up.
Yeah. All right, for sure. Well, to everyone that came up, like I do appreciate it. As I mentioned, it's been like a little bit of a long day, as you can imagine. So take it easy for now. Um, I'll probably host another space, whether it's tomorrow or the day after. Like I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. So thank you guys for like tuning in, listening, and all that kind of shit. And we'll just like keep it going. I may end up joining up in the voice chat at some point later tonight. But if I don't, then I'll end up like talking to everybody tomorrow. So take it easy tonight, and I will see you guys.